About a week ago, I put a video up entitled "Sorry Sony, but I'm not paying £70 for a video game," in which I detailed why I thought £70 for a video game was too expensive and why I thought it was actually counterproductive for Sony to put the price up from £50 to £70, because last generation you could usually pick up a game new for £50 and now it's £70. And look, you know, if you shop around, you can find things cheaper, but nevertheless, a £70 price for a video game, a £20 price hike, is pretty significant. And it's a $10 price hike as well, because it went from $60 to $70. And, you know, I went into this in a lot more detail in the previous video. Around about the same time as putting up the video, though, I also put up a poll, and you can see it on the screen now. And in the poll, I asked this: is Sony right to put the price of PS5 games up to $70.70? And I had a response of 242 votes at the time of making this video. And as you can see here, it was pretty unanimous in terms of the verdict. Now, a couple of things I have to say here first. Obviously, 242 votes is a very small sample size. So it could be that it's skewed by the sample size. I could just have a lot of people who were disgruntled at the price hike and not so many people who are happy. So that's one thing to take into account. The other thing is, I've been making a lot of videos about Xbox lately, so it could be skewed in that way as well. There could be a lot more people who are fans of Xbox who are voting, and obviously some of those are going to be skewed in terms of the way they look at Sony. So both in terms of numbers and the possible skew on the sample because of the people who might be voting in this, you know, you should take this with a pinch of salt. Nevertheless, it is significant in a small way. You've got 9% of people saying that they think that a $10, £20 price hike is acceptable, and 91% saying no, Sony are just being greedy. And the interesting thing here that goes beyond this is when you get into the comments, because if we go down here, we've got, you know, various people commenting. And the first comment you see is, "No, I refused the PlayStation 5 for that reason. I liked my PlayStation 4, but nope, the PlayStation 5, Sony is dragging its name down." The only people to say yes are the super duper fans that can't ever admit to any flaw with Sony. I'm planning on getting the Mafia trilogy. It's £49 for 3 games. I'd never pay £70 for one. That's stupid. And I would have to say I agree, obviously, because I made a video complaining about it. But the interesting point here is, if you go into this comment by the Underground Empire, I liked my PlayStation 4. I liked my PlayStation 4. So this is not an Xbox fanboy who's just trying to stir the shit. This is somebody who had a PlayStation 4 and liked their PlayStation 4 and is now moving over to Xbox. Now, they may have had an Xbox previous generation as well. They may prefer Xbox. But basically, they're being put off by the price. Then we go down here. It says they make more than that, 10% back in season passes and DLC. Again, that's a very good point. You're buying these games. These prices are the price of entry. They're not the full game often. So you buy these games and the price has gone up to £70, and then you're buying DLC, season passes and all the rest of it. I agree entirely with King James 313. Yeah, that's exactly what's happening. And I actually answered him here. I said, I agree. There's no justification for the price hike beyond greed. It says here, if games were actually much, much better than the last gen games, one could argue here. But it's barely any difference so far, and only the most greedy ones actually jumped on the $70 train. Again, I agree here. If there was a massive, massive increase in quality, and there was a massive increase in the cost of development of these games, and as I said in my previous video, I think that is possible, but there's no evidence to suggest that there's been a massive increase in the cost from, PlayStation 4 to PlayStation 5. Certainly not yet, anyway. There's no real justification there because it's not costing them more. The games aren't significantly better, not yet anyway. And so, yeah, the most greedy actually jumped on the train. And we have seen this. Companies like Activision jumping on the train, the $70 train. 2K, I believe, were one of the first companies to announce they were going to be bringing their games up to $70. And a lot of these games are sports games that have been, well, certainly with 2K, the sports games, they're not that much different year to year. And especially in a transition year, you're not seeing a great deal of difference. So the price hike is not justified there either. Then what we've got here, they have the right to do it, but it's not a good look on the value to the consumer. I'm the US and UK. It's $10 and £10 increase. Actually, $10 increase, but it's a £20 increase because it's gone from £50 to £70. It's a straight swap with the dollar price. So it's actually worse in the UK. Nevertheless, the point stands. It's not a good look. And if I go down, I mean, everybody here, 70 is just ridiculous. Nah, they don't think it's right. And then this one. And this is the elephant in the room, isn't it? Game Pass. Enough said. And, it is something that I mentioned in my last video. That is the elephant in the room. And I said it was a big honking elephant. The fact of the matter is that the value proposition is with Game Pass now. And so the price hike is looking doubly bad because if Microsoft, and look, the fact is if you buy these games on the Xbox store, a lot of them have gone up in price as well, especially from companies like Activision, because they will always hike the price if they can, and they think they can get away with it. Nevertheless, even if those prices have gone up on the Xbox as well, we've got Game Pass. So if there was no Game Pass, if you took Game Pass out of the picture and the price hikes were happening on Xbox and PlayStation, then we could get annoyed about it, but you couldn't see that it would negatively impact PlayStation. Whereas with Game Pass being in the picture, it could very well negatively impact PlayStation. I wouldn't buy a Sony game if you paid me. I mean, I don't agree with this one, personally. They do make great games. And that's someone just making an Xbox point. Probably an Xbox fan all the way. Well, he says as much. This is the point for me, though. Sony aren't listening. They're not listening to their fans. And this has been a problem now for some considerable time, certainly over the last couple of years, I would say, where Sony are doing things and not really listening to the biggest fans, not really listening to the people who want to like their games, who want to like their console, who want to like their services. They're making it harder for us to do so with their shenanigans with backwards compatibility, the price hike on games, any number of other things that they're engaging in. I mean, you listen to Jim Ryan and it's not really looking good in terms of PR. And look, I actually think that Jim Ryan sometimes gets a bit of a difficult time, maybe more so than he should. Nevertheless, it still looks bad. And I do think they need a reset. They need to go back to the drawing board and they need to look at what they're doing and what they're saying and the messages they're putting out. And they need to rethink this price model. And they need to get back to that mantra from the previous generation. For the players. It was simple. It was simple to understand. And they delivered. Quite a lot of the time, they delivered. We can get into the history of 2014, that period of time. And I'm not going to do that here. But the message that Sony had back then was clear and it was concise. And they offered decent games. They were still high prices. I mean, $60 is still not cheap. But if you look at the games that were coming, we could look at them and say, okay, look, I can afford that. I will buy one or two of these games as they come out, and you could wait for a sale or whatever. But the feeling was that they're doing good things. They're putting out good games, and people were feeling happy with them. And I think the perception is changing here. I think this one, if I can find it again, there we go. It's the first one, Underground Empire. No, I refused a PlayStation 5 for that reason. I liked my PlayStation 4. And I hear this time and time and time again now. Even some of the journalists out there who've been very much for PlayStation in the past are now talking about the value for money option from Xbox. And, you add in the ease of use with Xbox, with things like saves and stuff like that. It's an easier system to like. I hate to say it, and I know there are some Sony guys out there who won't agree with me. And fine, if you want to disagree with me, that's absolutely fine. But from my perspective, and from an awful lot of people's perspective now, it's getting a lot easier to like the Xbox system. And when you get hands-on with the Xbox system, you realise how easy it is to use. You go from one Xbox to another Xbox, and I know I've gone on about this in previous videos, but you do that and you just pick up and play from where you left off. You sign in, you carry on. It's not the same with PlayStation. I made videos about PlayStation Now and how the saves on PlayStation Now aren't the same saves as on your PlayStation console. I mean, what's going on with that? That's another area they need to sort out. So, as I say, Sony need to be listening to their customers, listening to the people who want to like their product. And they need to be looking at the competition as well, because they don't exist in a bubble. They exist in a competitive market. And some of the things that their competitors are doing, namely Microsoft, are actually very good. And consumer friendly, I have to say. I mean, you look at Game Pass, it looks a lot more consumer friendly when you compare it to a $10 and a £20 price hike for games. And as somebody pointed out, even higher, in some regions. It's not looking good. While Microsoft are making inroads into other regions and trying to make the console a value for money proposition for people in areas where in the past maybe consoles have been too expensive, Sony are doing the opposite. Sony are making it more difficult, and that's not going to help their sales in the long run. But anyway, look, that's me ranting on about it. I just wanted to look at this poll and use that as a sort of kicking off point to talk about some of these issues that I think Sony are having. I do think they need to sort things out, and I do think they need to do it quickly. As I said before, they're going to keep selling consoles, and they're outselling the Xbox console. But we're not talking about consoles, just consoles here. We're talking about game sales. We're talking about services. And Sony are already starting to fall behind, certainly in the services area. They need to pull their finger out. They need to get back to for the gamers. Have that in their minds at all times. If you serve your customer, your customers will like you and they will give you their money. The way things are going at the moment, they are going to start losing. In fact, I think they already are losing some customers to Xbox. And that can't continue. It will eventually become a snowball if they're not careful, and that snowball will roll down the hill, and Microsoft will be the ones gaining. That is the Microsoft snowball. The Game Pass snowball will keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And Sony will be stood at the top of the mountain, maybe with their cigar on like they have been for the last few years, wondering why they're not doing as well anymore. Anyway, as I say, look, I'm going on again. That's my that's my take on it. You guys might disagree, and if you do, let me know in the comments. Give me a thumbs up and all the usual stuff. And as I say, I keep saying this, come into my Discord, we can have a chat in there. And I'll speak to you guys in the next one. Bye.